And
Hi.
there is my beautiful friend Sarah. Sarah, Dr.
Hello.
Sarah Siavashi, hello. Welcome. We went live, the buttons weren't working, and now they're working. But now you got to stand by because I'm a hot mess. Because I just went live on Facebook, and give me a second to welcome our Facebook friends, and they can. I'm going to introduce you to. I'm going to turn the phone around so they can see your beautiful face in a second. But
Let's
right
do
now,
it.
my Instagram friends and to my Facebook friends, because we are live on a Thursday. I typically do Shallz live on Mondays, but given some of the many questions I have seen and the conversations that have been happening about the coronavirus, I thought this would be a good opportunity to bring a doctor, someone who knows more than the most of us, who are probably Dr. Googling stuff and who are listening to our friends and our family and trying to pull information from everywhere, um, be able to answer some of your questions. So before I do all of that, and Sarah, you are on Instagram, people are going to see you, and I'm going to turn you around and introduce you to my Facebook friends. I'm going to put you down. So we are streaming in both arenas right now. If you are on Facebook, you are able to ask your questions there, and I can pop up your questions on Shallz Emirati. And my Facebook friends, this is my beautiful friend, Dr. Sarah Siavashi from UC San Diego. You can see her streaming on my Instagram. Facebook, you won't see her
Hello.
face, but you're going to hear her voice. You want to say hi to Facebook, Sarah?
Hi, guys. How are you?
So you're going to
Excited to
hear
talk
her
about
voice.
coronavirus.
Yes,
Yes.
she's going to talk to you on Facebook. Hi, Benush and Mitra and Minush and Kathy and Cindy on Facebook from all over the world. People are jumping on here. And then Instagram, you're going to see the beautiful Dr. Siavashi's face the whole time because she's going to talk to you and take your questions like everywhere. And Dr. Siavashi or Sarah June, as I know you. Thank you last minute for jumping on here. And if I look, Sarah, by the way, if I keep looking away from you, it's because I have another camera and I'm addressing Facebook as well. I know that this was one of those things. I texted you this morning and I said, Sarah, can we talk about like this? Because this is kind of getting a little scary and out of control.
Oh my God. You called me or texted me right after my sister-in-law had called me and said, I want to go on a trip with my parents. I want to take them to Mexico. What do you think? Should I take them? And I was like, well, funny you ask. Everybody's freaking out about it. We talked earlier, and one of our friends is freaking out about going to the nail salon. So people are pretty spooked about the coronavirus, and understandably so.
Understandably so. We may chuckle about it and we may be a little lighthearted about it, but it is definitely a concern because it's not something that we've seen happen very often. We all are about going about our business, and all of a sudden we started hearing this news popping about coronavirus. And very similar to some of the other viruses that we've seen over the years, whether it was MERS, it's SARS, Ebola, all these different viruses, for people who are not in the medical field, who don't understand all of this, it can be quite scary, especially when all you start to see are like numbers popping up.
That's right.
So
So, yeah.
let's use this opportunity, Sarah, if you could. Um, let's get to the basics first. Let's talk about coronavirus. What is it? Where are we at today? And then let's take a moment to maybe start answering some of these questions because I feel, and this is on a personal note, depending on where you are in the world, because we do have viewers from overseas, and then we have viewers here in the US, there is quite a bit of panic right now. And is it justified? So why don't you take it away? Talk to us
Okay.
about the coronavirus and tell us what we should know, the truth, and not Dr. Google style. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. So coronavirus is actually properly not the proper term for it anymore. Coronavirus is a family of viruses. They're not anything new. We've known about coronaviruses for a long time, and they're actually pretty commonly invading our community with a lot of the common cold symptoms that a lot of us experience. The reason why this new virus is so interesting is because we've never seen it infect humans before. So a lot of the coronaviruses normally infect mammals, including animals. And this particular coronavirus, what we think is that it somehow spread possibly from a seafood market in China to a human by mutating. So that's how viruses work. They mutate, their genomes mutate, and then they can all of a sudden hop on and start infecting humans, whereas previously they were just infecting animals. So it's similar to, it's in the same family of viruses, actually, you alluded to previously, the SARS and the Mediterranean virus, MERS. So that was the outbreak in 2002 with SARS and in 2012 with MERS. And those also caused this very severe respiratory syndrome. And SARS is doing the same thing. And that's why it's so scary, is because if it's really severe enough, what it can do is get you into a terrible pneumonia, into the hospital, on life support, where you're in critical condition. That's why it's scary. So right now, it's infected approximately 82,000 people worldwide. And today, I think you're probably going to get there, and you'll guide me there. But today we had a case that was particularly scary, and I guess we'll go into why that spooked everyone.
Yeah, the case in Northern California. Are you referring to that?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
we'll get
exactly.
into that. Some of the numbers, and I want to confirm this because this is the latest data that I was able to find, and I'm sure, and I know that we talk about this on the news, and I know medically that you're probably doing the same thing. And friends, I know that some of you are saying that the picture is blurry. Just listen to the information. You don't need to see all of it. The important thing is to be able to answer some of your questions. 82,757 is the confirmed number. 2,814 deaths is the reported number. Again, there are reports that some of these numbers could be higher depending on what country is reporting it. And I've also learned, Sarah, that 33,000 people have also recovered from this. So that brings me to my next question, and then we'll get to some of the other ones, because I have seen messages back and forth on social media and people panicking that if you get the coronavirus, it's a death sentence. It's done. You're going to die. That is some of the energy and the messages that I'm seeing is that, but we have 33,000 people who so far have recovered in the medical field. What does this mean?
Yeah, so the Chinese CDC actually recently put out a paper, and they kind of summarized the cases. So out of 44,500 cases that were published and summarized, 81% of them had mild symptoms. So just like my husband right now is super sick, and he's got the common cold. He's got coughing, and he's got a sore throat, and he's a super big baby, so he exaggerates his symptoms. But that's 81% of those cases that were confirmed were common cold type symptoms. 14% were severe, 5% were critical, people that were in the hospital that didn't die, and only around 2%, or exactly 2.3% of the cases were resulted in death. Okay, so 81% of cases, of confirmed cases being really mild, is a pretty high number, pretty high chance that if you or I get it, being young and healthy, you're probably not going to end up in the hospital. You're very unlikely to die, okay? So the people that actually did die in that study in China were older. They had other chronic illnesses. They were not young, healthy people. So again, it's not the kind of thing that is going to result in you being hospitalized. And that's why I think what scares people. So yes, it could be a pandemic worldwide, meaning that the disease spreads worldwide and it involves most of our countries around the world. And if that does happen, a lot of the time, probably you're not going to end up in the hospital. Someone actually just asked, what if you're pregnant? That's a really good question. So if you are pregnant, you are immunosuppressed somewhat. Your immune system is not as strong. So if you're pregnant, if you're older, if you're immune compromised, you're on medications that suppress your immune system, you're on chemotherapy, you have cancer, you have diabetes, because that makes your immune system weak as well, then you're more susceptible to ending up in the hospital and possibly dying from the virus. If that's not you, then you probably don't need to worry so much.
Sarah, what would you, and I see some of these comments coming, I want to ask about twofold. I know that there are some reports, not only in China, in Iran, that there are quite a few younger people who died that are not responding to recovering from this virus. What would be I mean, you're not treating them, and we're not there to know all the circumstances, but how would that play out in cases? You know what I mean?
So not everyone that died was older, immunosuppressed. That's what's scary. So sure, you know, there's always a risk that something happens, you end up in the hospital and you die, just like with influenza. Right, Shallz? So we have people that get the flu every year that are young and healthy. Most of them survive. You're okay. But some small percentage of people will die. Same concept. Now, I don't want to minimize the danger of coronavirus. This is a new virus, and there are things about it that we don't know. So the transmissibility of this is thought to be a lot higher than influenza, which is why some reports are saying that at some point 70% of the world population may be infected at some time.
70%. Yeah, we had this in the news. When I thought 70% of like the whole world, that means we're going to get this? We could possibly get this?
Very possible. It's spreading really rapidly. So like there's been cruise ships, right, that have been quarantined, meaning that they have a confirmed case, and so they don't let people off the cruise, and so everybody has to stay on. And in those cases where they've quarantined people on the cruise ship, a pretty high percentage of those people end up becoming infected, because this seems to be a virus that quickly infects and invades people. With that being said, we don't have a vaccine yet. Hopefully it's sometime we do. And once we do have a vaccine, then that might protect the general population. And also remember that when people are infected once with one virus, unless that virus mutates, you start to develop antibodies and you're now protected. And so now you have general population ends up being protected from these viruses, which hasn't happened yet because it's such a new virus.
Sarah,
which is why it's spreading.
I just want to interrupt just for 1 second, because I think it's important. First of all, we are speaking, friends, in a general term. There are so many unique cases, I gotta imagine, with people's health, their gender, their age, their everything, their environment, the country that you live in, the healthcare that you have access to, that obviously would change these numbers. What the purpose, Sarah, is that I really wanted to talk about this was to talk about facts and truth. When Bukul Hair writes a comment that 8,000 people in California are infected, that is not a true statement, correct?
That's false, yeah. So in California, we have nothing close to 8,000. Nothing even close.
So when we see
in the U.S. in total right now we have 60 cases. Right, so 60 confirmed cases in the U.S.
So some of the panic,
definitely nowhere in the
right?
thousands.
Some of the panic is when you talk to your friends who are they're Dr. Google, or they think they're getting the correct information, and they're putting out like buccal hair. Is it okay? May we correct you at this time? 8,000 people in California are not infected with the coronavirus. There was some news that came out, Doctor, earlier today that said...
Yeah, so the reason why the news today was so scary is because all of the cases so far in the U.S. have been related to someone who either was traveling to or from China, or was in contact with someone who came in from China. Today was the first case in Northern California in Solano County where this gentleman, or actually we don't know if it's a man or woman, someone was infected who had no contact with someone from China that we know of, which means that now somehow this person had this coronavirus or the COVID-19 spread to him or her from the community. And that means that's an indication that possibly it's spreading throughout the community, which can be scary. Now, I will say, so a lot of people had a question like, how the heck did that happen? How did this person get the virus? So what a lot of people I think don't know is that they were helping evacuate some of the large cities in China that had been heavily infected by coronavirus. And we actually in California had some of those people come into military bases, and they were quarantined there.
In San Diego.
In San Diego, in Riverside County, and in Northern California. And Solano County, which this man or woman was infected, was one of those places that accepted those evacuees from China. So it's possible that someone didn't come off the plane and say, yeah, I have symptoms, and so they weren't checked. They weren't screened appropriately, or maybe they were screened appropriately, but they didn't have any symptoms. Maybe it was someone young, healthy like you or me who just thought, I have some allergies, I don't have a cough, I don't have whatever. And someone was walking down the street with coronavirus, not knowing it, spread it, coughed or sneezed on some older person who's more susceptible, and that person received the droplets or touched a door handle that healthy person had touched. Healthy person doesn't get the illness, but this older person or this immunocompromised person touches the door handle, touches their mouth, gets the virus. That's a possible proposed theory of how it could have happened.
This 8,000 is people right now who are being monitored. They're not infected with coronavirus. They are being now monitored for the coronavirus, which is totally two different things because they want to be able to find out where the source is and if it's spreading, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. So those people are either people that have had contact with someone with coronavirus, that have traveled in and out of China, high risk people that are being monitored. The problem is that we only have like 200 kits in California right now to test for coronavirus. So if you are someone who goes to the hospital and says, yes, I had contact with someone from China and I have a cough, technically you should be screened and you should have this test for coronavirus. It's called a PCR sequencing is what they do, and they do a rapid test. But we only have 200 kits, which is what our Governor Newsom today appropriately said is not enough. We need more.
Okay, I keep wanting to refer you, by the way. This beautiful lady right here is a good friend of mine. If you're just hopping on here, her name is Dr. Sarah Siavashi. She is a doctor in UC San Diego, and she's a neurologist there. And I talked to her earlier today. Our physicians are all trying to understand what's happening. And I thought this might be a good opportunity for us to just sit down and talk facts and what we know, rather than getting information from each other. And some of this information is creating a bit more of a panic that is on a side note. You go into the politics, you go into the economy, you see what's happening to the stock market. People don't want to travel. I'm going to ask you about that in a second, Sarah June. People don't want to send their kids to school, which is where I want to bring our next topic as far as kids go. So I'm looking at videos popping up all over the internet. We don't know the validity of these videos of kids who are having trouble breathing. I'm at home. I'm looking at my own 4 children as a mother. You are a mother as well. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if my kids get this, are they going to die? I mean, this is what's going through all of our heads. They're little. Their immune systems are not set up the way that we are. And before you answer that, because I want to bring up a message that was sent to me by someone that I know in regards to schools. So they have a situation in their Newport Beach school district that they have a handful of kids, Chinese kids starting school, several of them self-quarantined, but they're all going to come to school tomorrow. And they're explaining a very concerned group of parents who are now keeping their own kids home from school. And they are asking for these kids not to come to school. They've reached out to their school district. I can go on a side note. I did a little bit of research myself to find out how the schools are able legally even to handle this. You really technically can't, unless it's mandated right by the government, you can't deny a kid access to school. I mean, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So if you're self-quarantining, talk about the self-quarantine also, and then talk about the kids. If a kid gets this, how is this different? And how do you deal with this at schools?
There's actually no clear guideline right now in terms of how long a person should be self-quarantined when they come from China. The incubation period, meaning the amount of time from when you're exposed to the virus to when you start to become virulent or infectious, is somewhere between 14 to 28 days. So the recommendation is that if you have come or traveled from China or you've been exposed, you probably want to self-quarantine for the safety of others to not spread it somewhere between 2 to 3 weeks, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, if you've done that and you're now ready to go back to school or go back into the public, the recommendation is if you have any cough or cold symptoms and you have been exposed to the coronavirus, you shouldn't go out in public, okay? You need to be screened. And that's, so this is actually a problem that Princeton University was having, USC was having. The US takes in more foreign students than any other country, including the most from China, right? So we have a lot of Chinese foreign students in our universities, in our elementary schools. So the way that Princeton dealt with this was that they did a screening. So if you have been exposed, if you have any symptoms, do not come to school, self-quarantine yourself, stay at home. And the way that schools need to help facilitate that is by making it not so difficult on these kids. You know, you stay home from school one day as a kid and you've got like piles of homework. Mm-hmm. So the schools need to make it a little bit easier for these kids that if they need to stay at home because they're not feeling well, they're encouraged to do so, right? Come back to school when you're feeling better and be appropriately screened. So hopefully at some time, we can get enough kids so that these kids who are exposed, who have some symptoms, go really quickly to the hospital or to a clinic. They get screened by coughing up some of their spit. And if it's negative, perfect. If it's positive, then you definitely don't go anywhere. You stay quarantined.
I do, if I can say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Sarah. I don't know if I call you Sarah June, Dr. Siavashi, Sarah. I mean, I feel weird. She is a doctor, but she's my friend. I call her Sarah.
We're friends. Yeah, exactly. And please don't call me Dr. Siavashi on Instagram. It just feels weird.
Okay. I think I got yelled at by somebody earlier. Like, have some respect. She's a doctor. Can we just take this moment to just make a point that this is not a Chinese virus anymore? Like, viruses don't have borders. This is now in Iran. This is in Italy. This is in Europe. This is here in the US. So what may have originated in China now, it is everywhere. It is everywhere. So just please keep that in mind, friends, because when I see these comments sometimes that I'm not going to go to the nail salon, I read these comments that I'm not going to go to have Chinese food.
Awful. Yeah. No. We're not trying to promote xenophobia here, right? So that's something we're trying to avoid. Obviously, if someone has come from China recently and they're coughing, yeah, I actually might be a little on edge
but
too.
But what if somebody comes from Sarah? Somebody comes from China. Somebody comes from Iran. Somebody comes from Italy. I mean, they're coming from all over. I mean, the virus, from what I understand and the research that we've done, is that the new cases in China they're starting to dip. So it's not like these numbers they're actually popping up in Iran right now. Iran's dealing with this big time. Italy, as we've seen. So it's not I think like China already went through this big wave.
Japan
just shut down all their schools until almost April today.
Crazy.
Because of it. So you come from anywhere in the world, right? And you look at everybody, you go out, you're like, oh, you're Japanese, you're Italian, you're Iranian, you're Chinese, you're all that. You came from anywhere on the side of the world, don't get near me? Is that where we're at? I mean, do you have to have some? Because the case that you were talking about that was reported that was concerning about what happened in Northern California is that this particular person, they don't know where that contact came from, that person is now tested positive for coronavirus, right?
Yeah. All the experts are saying now, Shally, that there are probably so many more cases of coronavirus walking around with you not even knowing. that they're cases, that they're positive for coronavirus, because the confirmed cases, most of those guys have been really sick, right? They've ended up in the hospital. Mm-hmm. But again, remember, at least 80% are really mild, and they look just like the common cold. How do you know that your friend that just stayed home with the cold, or that didn't even stay home with the cold, that had really mild symptoms, still went to work, didn't have coronavirus? Hopefully not. That's not the case yet. But at some point, given how infectious this is, that might be the case. And we can't excommunicate people because of where they're from, because eventually this is going to spread, and hopefully it stays mild and people recover very nicely from it, as is the case with influenza, with the flu.
Yes, because we've talked about this on the news, and we had the CDC on our show, on the morning show, and I straight up asked him a month and a half, 2 months ago, and he said the risk is low. Calm down, Jolly. The risk is low. Now, that was a month and a half ago. Now I'm hearing stuff out of the CDC, and I'm hearing from doctors that they said for US, I know it's different in other countries, do not panic, prepare. We do better to prepare when we're not panicking. So,
how are you preparing?
How am I preparing?
How should we prepare?
Well, I read. I'm not a panicky person. I have 4 kids, and my rule is unless I see blood, I don't jump. That's my rule with the kids. But the doctor who had spoken from the CDC said it's a good idea to have food in your house. It's a good idea to have water in your house. It's a good idea to have a plan that if the schools need to close in the US, you are prepared. To have a plan that if you need to work from home, you can. Is it likely that's going to happen? We hope not. But if we are prepared for it, we don't go into this like, oh my gosh, the kids are home and we're going to die. And oh my God, we got the virus and this person's coughing. And because that's when I think it gets scary. When people don't know. And right now, I do believe that people don't understand what the coronavirus is. You see these numbers and you turn on the news every day. Coronavirus taking over Italy, Japan closing their schools because of the coronavirus. To the average person who is not a doctor like you, we think we get the coronavirus and that's it. If our kids get it, oh my God, that's it.
No, probably not. There's a good chance at some point in the next couple years that unless so here's I just wanted to put this in perspective, because with SARS, that was really scary back in like 2002, 2003. People didn't end up getting the illness until they actually showed symptoms. That's not the same with COVID-19 or this novel new coronavirus, okay? You can walk, as I said, down the street with coronavirus, not even knowing that you have it because of the nature of how mild it can be. So SARS and the Mediterranean respiratory syndrome, those two were they were more contained because people were a lot more severe in how they presented. This is probably not going to go down that way. This will probably continue to spread, as experts have suggested, up to maybe 70% of the world's population at some point may have this, because of how mild it tends to be, because it will spread very easily, and you might not know that you even have it, right?
Is it dangerous for kids?
The cases right now have shown that actually kids don't have as severe of an illness as adults do, interestingly. And that's just from that study of 84,500 people in China that kind of, they put together all of the people that had been suffering from the novel coronavirus. Now, we know that babies, like neonates that are just born, they have really weak immune systems. And so it would be very scary for a neonate to develop any sort of viral infection. Kids in general, like elementary school age, them getting this coronavirus is probably going to be similar to them getting the flu. Which it could be dangerous sometimes, right?
Right, because the flu, and that's what, when the CDC came on our show, they said the same thing. They said you should be more concerned here in the U.S., again, here in the U.S., to get the flu than you would be for COVID.
Well, of course. Look at how many confirmed cases of coronavirus there are in the U.S., 60. How much influenza do we have? Hundreds of thousands, right? Lots of hundreds of thousands of deaths of influenza virus in the U.S.
And we still have that on and off topic of, because I can see some of the people on Facebook and Instagram asking, do you get the flu vaccine? Do you not get the flu vaccine? There's still, I read an interesting study. I think it was up on the Centers for Disease Control that they said that still the population in the U.S., 50 or 60%, get vaccinated, or 50%, and like 50% of people in the U.S. don't get vaccinated for the flu for the flu.
The whole comparison to the influenza virus, honestly, Shallz, I think is kind of tough because, yes, there are a lot more cases of influenza and there are a lot more deaths related to influenza, but influenza has been around for a long time. And there's also vaccines for influenza. Someone just made a comment. Yes, you're right. Influenza, there's a vaccine.
There's antiviral medicines, right?
Coronavirus, yes, there's antivirals that are somewhat effective, sure. But the coronavirus is new. And so, yeah, of course it hasn't infected as many people. Of course it hasn't killed as many people. Of course we should still be more concerned about influenza and other chronic illnesses. Even chronic illnesses like, we should probably be more concerned right now about the obesity epidemic in the U.S., right? But coronavirus is new, and so we don't know what direction it's going to go. And so that is why people are scared, because it's largely unknown. I get it. Any new virus that can rapidly spread, that can rapidly mutate, which we don't know about that yet, but it obviously rapidly spreads, that can be concerning, can be scary to people.
What about masks? Can I tell you, there's N95 mask. And then there are the regular masks. I went on Amazon. I said, okay, I'm going to prepare. They said, I see everybody wearing masks. I went to Amazon. They're all gone. You can't get them.
Oh, my God.
I'm like, and then I'm reading that they're not even effective.
Yeah, if only we had bought stock in the manufacturers of N95 masks before all of this, because that would have been smart. But, so the masks that you see people walk around with, like just the sort of regular masks, those are not N95.
Like the surgical mask, like a doctor would wear.
Yeah. And those masks, by the way, are really just not very effective at all. The little droplets can go through from the bottom, from the top. Those can be somewhat effective if you're trying to protect other people from getting infected. If you are sick, if you don't want your family members to get sick, or if you want to protect people when you're out and about, beautiful, wear one of those.
And I also heard too, even though it's not effective for that virus to get in, it does deter you, because all I hear is don't touch your face, don't touch your mouth, don't touch your eyes, don't touch your face, don't touch your eyes, don't touch and just wash your hands. So by having one of those masks, as I'm touching my face, I wash my hands to the Happy Birthday song. It does prevent you, if you do have that mask on, from touching your nose and your mouth. That's the only prevention, right? So why is everybody wearing a mask?
Yeah, I mean, it's really not that helpful. The N95 is a little bit better. The N95 is a respiratory mask that can help prevent droplets from getting in a little bit better. But even that, there's no evidence that it really is going to help that much. I wouldn't suggest going out and wearing one in public. Wash your hands constantly. Don't touch the door handles and then eat. Whenever I go to a bathroom or a public bathroom, I always open and close with a paper towel. And I hate when I see people not do that. It's so gross. grab the paper towel, then open and close the door. Do not touch anything. I'm flying this weekend. You're flying next week. I'm bringing bactericidal sanitation
That's a good, can you
wipes,
touch on that too?
wipe down everything.
Can you touch on that too? Because today in our newscast, JetBlue, we were talking about the JetBlue announced waiving some changes. A lot of airlines are starting to pop up and say, we will waive your change fee if you need to change flights. I know people who are concerned about traveling have canceled their trip. Their companies are canceling trip. I'm getting on a plane in 5 days. Oh my God, what do we do if you're going to travel?
Yeah, I'm taking with me these really strong sanitation wipes that are bactericidal. You're not even supposed to put them on your hand without wearing gloves.
Where do I get
them
it?
from the hospital.
Oh,
yeah, you know what? I don't know. I kind of stole them from the hospital, but but I mean, you know, they're. I'm sure you can get them online somewhere. You can look up.
Were those
really strong.
Do those normal bacterial wipies work, like the ones that are the white that says kills the flu virus, like the, you know?
Yeah, those are good too.
Okay.
Those are good too. Yeah, you want to wait like a minute to let it dry on its own. Let it dry on its own. Don't let your kids touch it and then touch their mouths because that stuff isn't good for you.
Okay.
So I wipe down everything when I'm traveling. I wipe down the little board in front of me, the little drop down thing. I wipe down the chairs. I wipe down the armrests. I will not touch anything after I have wiped that down. And I'm not going to let my baby touch anything because we're going to go on a plane with her. And so we're going to wipe everything down. We're going to sanitize and make sure that everything around us is clean.
Do you need to wear a mask if you're going on a plane? And do you need to cancel your trip? Let's say you are straight up headed to Europe, or you're going to Mexico, you're going to Hawaii. I see somebody's coming back from Jamaica. They're freaking out. Like, do you need to cancel your trip?
Probably not. Okay, we don't know what. So in 2 to 3 months, we don't know what things are going to look like in those territories, in those countries. The amount of cases in Europe are pretty low, right? Except there's, you know, in one part of Italy, there have been a rise in cases. If you're traveling to Asia, you might be more concerned. And then the CDC and the Johns Hopkins websites have really good descriptions of what countries within the Asian continent you need to be more concerned about. So just go online and look. But if you're going to go to Mexico this weekend, if you're going to go to Hawaii, if you're a regular healthy person, I wouldn't be concerned. If you're immunocompromised or older, I might be concerned. Yeah, maybe. Maybe if you think that you're more at risk, susceptible to infectious diseases, you may be more concerned and maybe want to wear a mask for some added protection. There's no evidence that an N95 mask is going to save you, but it wouldn't hurt, right?
Right.
So if you are immunocompromised and you're at risk for diseases, sure, and you're traveling, then wear it. If you're going to travel to Asia, look up specifically what Asian countries you shouldn't travel to.
That's good information. Do I need to wear a mask on a plane? Can you know they go on the plane and everybody starts coughing and you're like in one little like bubble? Is there anything you can do about that airplane air? I mean, because I think, Sarah, too, that what I'm taking out is like you have to be like your own protectant of the whole community right now. You got to take care of yourself. There's so many people. If you feel like you're sick, do good on the people around you and just don't put yourself in public. Don't get on a plane. Don't travel if you feel sick. Don't go to school.
Right, and that goes back to that question that you asked earlier about the kids from China traveling back to the U.S., wanting to go back to school. If there's a concern for any of those kids, people should practice common sense, right? If you have traveled from China, or Iran, or Italy, or wherever, or Japan, and you are sick, stay inside. Don't go to school for a little while. Go and get checked out. Make sure you don't have a confirmed case of coronavirus, of the COVID-19, and protect others around you. So self-quarantine.
We do you need a drink of water? Are you good on time? We're at like 5:46. You're okay? Can you take a few more questions?
Let's do it.
I know that for us, we have for the Iranians, we have a big Persian New Year coming up. I know in Brazil, they have their big festival coming up where everybody goes out in the street and they dance, and there are going to be a lot of larger group gatherings, or you're going to a concert, you're going to a wedding, you're going to a party, whatever it is. I saw a few comments from people going, oh, you can't go out in public, we're going to get sick. Would you like to address that?
Yeah, I don't think that we're there right now at that point with this virus that we have to be scared of going out into a public gathering.
So you can still go to the gym.
Yes, please go to the gym. Please go to work.
And wash your hands.
Yes, yes. Unless this virus spreads to a point at some point within one particular community where there's a declared state of emergency and they say everybody needs to stay home from school and work, then fine. Then we'll quarantine ourselves at that point. But we're not there.
And can we talk about when counties and cities, when they declare a state of emergency, it does not mean that the county or city of people are infected.
It means they're asking for help, right? It means maybe one person or two people there have a confirmed case, but they're asking for help.
Most of it financial too, right? Financial.
Yeah. Right, and that actually allows them to get some resources as well. So that helps to call from the CDC, hey, we need more kits. We have people that need to be screened that may have been exposed to this COVID-19 virus. Remember I said California right now only has 200 kits to screen for the virus. That's not enough. So when communities call or counties call for state of emergencies, that means that they are asking for help and for more resources. Yeah.
Will there, so are you basically saying unless something like can we all take just a deep breath? Because I feel like talking to you right now, I've been wanting to do this. Because that's scary. When you see the news sometimes and you hear people talk who tend to panic. I know who these people are. Not that this is not serious. Not that this is not something that we should be concerned with. This is serious. People are dying. It's a virus. It's spreading. Yes, yes, yes. But this isn't like a movie where my husband was like, have you seen Contagion? And it's spreading. And then we're locking our doors and we're buying these masks and don't touch me. Don't look at me. Don't walk by me. I'm going to get sick. I feel like there might be a small group of people that are going there. And it's like, just come back. Let's panic when we need to panic. And we're not there yet.
Exactly. Absolutely. I love that. You're so right. There's a concern, a valid concern. It is unknown, but we are not at the point where we need to say, let's not go out into the public. Let's not go out into the world. That kind of seclusion and isolation right now is probably not good for our mental health. That would probably cause a different sort of issue.
Right. And this is what we're talking about too, is applying like San Diego down here in the US, because there are Japan shut down their schools until close to April. Iran is dealing with this and they're asking a lot of people to stay inside their home, right? So it just depends on we saw China completely shut down while they were trying to get a handle of this.
Yeah.
Can this virus, let's say somebody in China sends me a happy birthday card and then somebody with the COVID virus, this is not a joke, and they write like a letter and then they put it in the mail and it came all the way across, and then I opened the letter and I touched it and then I went like this. Am I going to get it?
No, absolutely not. No, you can get it through the air. You can get it through droplets. If someone coughs or sneezes and those droplets go into the air and you breathe that in somehow, you can get it if you touch the all still liquid surface. If that's already been absorbed, the virus is no longer transmissible if it's landed on a piece of paper and you touch that piece of paper.
It doesn't live. I think I read
after that many hours.
The flu virus I read, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like it can live up to 24, 48 hours on a surface.
Yeah, it depends on different surfaces, right? Okay. On paper, the fact that it's absorbed so well into paper is probably less. On a countertop surface can probably last a little bit longer.
But the uncertainty about this COVID virus, and again, this is just stuff I've read, so I'm trying to educate myself to calm down, to not panic, was that they don't know, and some speculate that this could live a little bit longer on surfaces.
Sure. But again, there's so much that we don't know.
So I'm not supposed to panic.
No, I don't think there's any reason for panic right now, but there's definitely a reason to educate yourself, to understand how to protect yourself, how to make sure that you are
How do you protect yourself? I'm glad you brought that up. I'm sorry to interrupt, Doctor, but how, because I've seen this question pop up multiple times, both on Facebook and Instagram. How can someone healthy, mom, dad, your kids, your parents, What do you do at this point to protect yourself as we're watching this all play out?
So, as we said, number one, wash your hands constantly. Constantly. Wash your hands. Use hand sanitation if you cannot use soap and water. Soap and water, remember, is always better at killing viruses and bacteria than than alcohol-based sanitation sanitizers. If you're traveling, be careful with where you travel, okay? And if you are exposed to anyone that says they did travel to or from a country with the COVID-19 virus, with the coronavirus, and they have some of the symptoms, cough, sneezing, sore throat, encourage them to go to the hospital or to a clinic to get tested, okay? But the biggest thing is protecting yourself by washing your hands.
Which we should be doing anyhow because it's really gross.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's still the flu going around, right?
Yes.
So there's a reason to wash your hands for many reasons.
One of my best friends is a pediatrician. You know her, Dr. Yasribi, and she mentioned how out of control the flu season is.
Yeah, it's been really bad this year, and this is the first year that I have a new baby at home, and I forced my husband to get a flu shot. And I said, I don't care if you don't usually get it. You have to get the flu shot because we have to protect ourselves and our baby. And someone else was asking actually about vaccines for this. So there's no vaccine that's been developed yet, but of course the biotech companies are racing to try to get a vaccine developed. It's probably not going to come any earlier than 18 months. So it would be fantastic if it did. But by the time it goes through phase 1 clinical trials and it's deemed safe, and then it's compared to, it's studied in a larger population, it's probably not going to be any earlier than 18 months. Okay. The people also had a couple questions down here about how to be treated if you do get it. So mostly it's supportive care, meaning if you have it. So what does this cause when it's really bad? It causes pneumonia, right? So if you're one of the people who have mild symptoms, it's just mild cough, cold, sneezing. But if you have it severely, then it's a pneumonia, which is an infection of the lungs, which can cause you to have significant breathing issues, needing respiratory support. You're in an ICU, and if you're really bad, life support, right? So those are all measures, meaning supportive care. But there are some antivirals that are out there that have been repurposed, including HIV drugs, actually, that have shown some efficacy, which is really interesting as well. And then it was also very interesting. So the Chinese CDC also called for people who had been cured or who had recovered from the coronavirus to donate their plasma. Because when you have recovered from a virus, you've now developed antibodies to that virus. And so those antibodies are being, it's called compassionate use. They're considering using it for some people who are critically ill, injecting the antibodies, the plasma of people who've recovered from coronavirus into really ill people so that those healthy antibodies can protect the sick. Kind of just like breastfeeding. Mm-hmm. You're giving your healthy antibodies to your baby. Same concept. You've recovered, you've been exposed to a virus, you now have immunity, you have protection, and you give that to someone else. So that's really interesting is the stuff that they're coming up with to try to treat this coronavirus.
Is there any truth that by summer this could kind of burn itself out with the warmer temperatures?
That's what some people are saying. It's really hard to predict. Again, some of the top epidemiologists at Harvard are saying no, that it's just going to continue to spread. So it's really hard. It's really hard to say. Who knows? It might just continue to spread and might be one of our new influenza-type viruses that people get, and hopefully eventually we get a vaccine for and have to be protected for every year.
Because we already deal with this. It's the flu season, right? Every year we hear flu season is here and the viruses are here. And we're usually, when the winter comes, we start to see people get sick. So just like you said, this could be one of those viruses. But just because you have a sore throat right now or you're coughing doesn't mean that you have the coronavirus and you're going to die. You could have a cold. You could have
Yeah.
right?
But I will say something that people were upset about with that guy in Northern California was that he did present with cough, cold first, and or he or she, whoever, we don't know the identity of the person, that developed to a pneumonia. But because that person had not been exposed to anyone traveling to or from China, they did not check for the COVID-19 because technically that patient didn't meet the criteria. And the current criteria has been if that person has traveled to or from China. But as you've mentioned several times, now it's not just in China.
No.
It's in a bunch of different places. And so that's why the governor has said, listen, we need more kits because it shouldn't just be people that are traveling to or from China. It should be many people who have these sorts of symptoms being checked for COVID-19. Right? So we need better screening tools. We need to check more people so that in that way we can try to contain the virus and quarantine the people who do get infected with it.
I saw a friend of mine who wasn't feeling well and she went to urgent care. She said it's completely overloaded with people. If there's anybody who's watching right now, because I tend to find, sometimes I go to the doctor, Sarah June, for like a Dr. Sarah. It's just Dr. Sarah, by the way. I still feel weird calling her Dr. Sarah because she's my friend, but I go to the doctor just to do my yearly checkup. I come out and I get sick because there's so many sick people over there.
Yeah, I know. I always tell patients when they come to the hospital, I'm on call at UCSD. And so, by the way, someone was asking, they were like, what is she doing up there talking about coronavirus? She's a brain doctor. Well, we had a coronavirus case at UC San Diego. So, and that's where I work. I'm a neurologist there. And so, yeah, I actually had to consult upon that case because there were some neurologic issues with that case. Anyways, so, without giving more detail away, I always tell patients who come to UC San Diego, if you are in the hospital in the emergency room and you're worried about being sick, you need to get the heck out because this is the worst place to be. Everyone is really sick and there are viruses floating around, bacteria floating around, and you do not want to be here.
I do know that there are a lot of hospital staff and doctors. I heard, again, I haven't been back to Iran in, I'm not going to even say how many years because I'll age myself. But I heard that few of our distant cousins who are both physicians in Iran at the age of 37, both of them have the coronavirus and they're not doing well.
Wow.
And again, these are not cousins who I've met because, again, I haven't been to Iran. I was 4 the last time I went. But when you hear that there are 37-year-old doctors who are in the hospital, and we saw the same thing in China, a lot of nurses and people who are around it, is it true that health professionals who are exposed to it, it's like you get a higher dose of the, help me out with the words here, than compared to somebody who may just be in your family that you might see? Is that?
It's hard. I don't know. I think what you're asking is, if you're a healthcare professional and you do get one of these viruses, are you going to be more badly affected? Is that your question?
Yeah, because there are doctors who have died. There are people who are working around them.
Yeah, we're not sure exactly why that is. That may be that they're just more exposed, right? Like, I work in a hospital. I work in the clinic mostly, but when I take call, I'm at the hospital and I'm around very, very sick people. And so when I'm around them, I have higher exposure to a gazillion different illnesses when I walk down a hospital hall. So that might be why physicians do tend to get sick. I remember when I was back in, whenever I was a medical student rotating through pediatrics, all the kids were sick and I was constantly sick because everyone was sick around me. And yeah, we have a mutual friend who's a pediatrician, your very close friend, and she's probably now just built up immunity because she's been exposed to all of these viruses so many times that she's gotten them at some point. And as I said, when you're exposed to a virus, you develop an antibody. And unless that virus mutates, you no longer get that virus because you're protected from it. That's the amazing thing about our immune system, the amazing thing about our bodies.
The flu vaccine does not help this. This is totally two different things. I've seen that question pop up like 100 times. If somebody wants to run out and get the flu vaccine right now, this is totally two different things.
No. Go out and get it anyways if you haven't, because you want to be protected from the flu, but it does not help with the coronavirus or the COVID-19.
So, Dr. Sarah,
totally different vaccine.
As we kind of wrap this up, because I know we've been on here for, how long have we even been on here?
Like an hour.
I know. There's so much to talk about because everybody's talking, and we need good information The takeaway, if you can wrap this up for us and put it in a little box for today, is it going to change in a month? It's, as you said, it's evolving. We're learning. You're learning. Doctors are learning. But today, I can take a deep breath.
So right now, at this moment, you living in California, being young and healthy, please take a deep breath. Walk outside without hesitation. Go to parties. Don't be too concerned. If you are worried about traveling, if it's not a place that has been heavily affected by coronavirus, by all means, travel. Go. If you are an immunosuppressed individual or you're older, you may want to consider traveling. Everybody should be washing their hands, whether you're young, old, healthy, ill. Wash your hands constantly. Masks are probably not necessary, okay? But if you are sick, please don't go out in public. Or if you are going to go out in public, wear a mask to protect other people around you.
I love all of this information. Is there anything else that you want to add besides that beautiful face of yours? I love that you're beautiful, smart, and you know all of this stuff. I'm so proud of you. And thank you for taking time to talk to us. It was just important, I think, for all of us to just stop Googling stuff so much.
Exactly.
And get some information before you panic. Just because if we get the coronavirus, it does not mean that we're going to die. I think that's the biggest thing that I think the takeaway is.
81% of people in that study had mild symptoms that were just like the cold. Case closed. I hear your kids calling, Shally.
2 of them are home. The other 2, and this is where the chaos starts.
Mine's crying somewhere down the hall.
Oh, I know you have a beautiful little baby. Dr. Siavashi from UC San Diego, I so appreciate you. I adore you. Thank you for talking with us. Let's do this again. Let's see what happens. And if you have the time over the next few weeks and months, as we're all watching this, because this could all of a sudden go this way. It could go anyway. That's the scary part about all of this. So maybe we find some time, and you know, when Armina says, is the fatal rate low, that you heard it's low? Yes, the rate is low.
2%.
2%. So we as the CDC told me a month and a half ago, we should be more concerned about the flu. I think we're still there, but just wash your hands, take care of yourselves, right?
Exactly.
And that's the takeaway. Dr. Siavashi, thank you so much. Go back in if you can. If you guys want it to, you can, like, don't be like creepy and stuff, but you can message her, and if she has time, maybe she can if you have an important question, you can send her a message. But other than that, please leave my friend alone. All right.
Your followers are amazing.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
90% of them are amazing. I love my friends. I don't even call them followers. I call them my friends. So 90% of them are amazing. Thank you, Sarah June. Say hi to your beautiful family. Kiss your baby girl, and I will call you soon.
Bye.
Bye, sweetie. Oh, she's amazing. Did you see that? My beautiful Facebook friends, I'm still live with you. That was my good friend, Dr. Sarah Siavashi. Let me just take this down so I can see some of your comments. I tried to do this simultaneously so that I could talk to Instagram and Facebook at the same time. You could see her. If you want to go back to Instagram, I did post that video up, and you can actually see her talking. This was the easiest way, and I just put the microphone up to my phone so that you on Facebook could hear her voice, so I didn't have to repeat this twice. Brenda, I have a few more minutes until this probably times me out in a minute. Franca and Minush and Heather, the takeaway here, friends, let's keep learning about it. Let's keep talking about it. Please do not panic right now. I think that's what the takeaway is. Right, Shyla? We're not going to panic. Come over here. We're not going to panic right now. We're going to wash our hands. Wash our hands. We always wash our hands before we eat, and we're going to take care of each other. And this is going to pass, right? This is going to pass. We're all going to be okay.
Mommy, after food, can we have ice cream?
Oh, after food, yes, we can have ice cream. All right, beautiful friends. Have a wonderful night, And Brenda, the color of my eyeshadow, I don't know, babe. I'll tell you later. I gotta go give this girl ice cream or my head is gonna be on a platter. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.
I see that.
I know.